The Community Safety Committee meeting, and item 1 is yes, actually no, before we go into item 1 I will tell you a little bit of news on my introduction, because Damien's just told me that sad news, genuinely, Dexter, one of the fire dogs. Now I must admit I hadn't read this, I wasn't aware of this because I just wasn't aware, so I'm sorry about that. So just to confirm that Dexter, a retired fire dog, has sadly passed away. And he lived with Dave, his handler. So we genuinely send our condolences to Dave, and because we all know what a great job the fire dogs do, and also the very special relationship that the handlers have with the dog. So we do genuinely send our condolences to Dave. And Damien's just telling me that apparently we've had 500,000 views on the Facebook about that news.
I'm having Ginny replaced.
Yeah, so Ginny's the new dog on the block. She's taken over, but I think because they live with and have them from a puppy all the way through to the end of their life, it's a real loss for Dave.
It is a big thing. It's like anyone who's got a pet or a dog. It's literally part of the family, isn't it? So there we are. So apologies for absence. We have Samina Riaz is apologising. Do we have any other? That's it, isn't it? No, we're all here, aren't we? So any declarations of interest? And we have the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 9th of January. Are we all happy that they're correct?
Thank you.
Just want to? Yes.
Yeah, just on that point, Chair, there were quite a few asks and questions from the last meeting. They've all been discharged now. Hopefully Councillors had emails with all the information on, and the only part to close that is at the rising of committee today, we've got a short input around fire protection investigations, which we're going to host on Teams, but also for members as well, following the questions raised at the last meeting.
And we did send a general invitation out to all other members of the authority, so whether or not they'll tune in, we'll find out whether we so that's after this meeting. So we'll move into the first item, or substantive item, which is the 2025 Fatal Fires Review. So Damien and then Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I think this is our annual report that we bring to members, and Tom Archer will take us through the detail of this. I think what we will focus on is the causes and follow-up to the fatal fires that occurred in 2025. So we measure this on a calendar year, one of the few reports that we do in that way because of the coronial process. And I think we always start this meeting just by reflecting on the tragedy and the loss of life to the people. So whilst we talk quite factually about the process and the assurance that we can provide to members around the process we take, we absolutely remember that each one of these people is a resident who was here in Nottingham at the time of their death. So it's a very poignant report, but equally a very important report for us to reflect on those deaths and see what we can learn to try and prevent future deaths. So thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Tom Archer, who'll take us through the...
Good morning, Councillors. Good morning. So I'm going to summarise the report. Please excuse me, I'm a little bit croaky, so please, if I'm not legible or audible, please tell me. But if I go over a point that you want to raise, please just bring me back to me, so I'm not going to read verbatim. So as Damien said, the 5 fatalities within this report are from the calendar year of 2025. Obviously, our fatal fire incidents are investigated by our fire investigation team, which is composed of our dedicated fire investigation officers and our flexi-duty officers who attend on a rota basis when they're on duty. And we conduct these alongside our crime scene investigation colleagues from the police, with the reporting required for His Majesty's coroner when they enter the criminal justice system, depending on the outcome of that investigation. So just at 1.4, within 2025, there has been a decrease in fatal fire incidents within the county from the preceding 4 years. So four separate incidents resulted in 4 fatalities, whereas the average number of fatalities attended by Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service from 21 to 24 has been 8 unfortunate deaths per year. So we have seen a reduction this year. And at 1.6, you can see just a summary table of those figures. At 1.7, within 2025, we did have 3 incidents which we initially treated as a fire fatality. However, we removed these from our statistics as the cause of death was later found to be due to natural causes. So these incidents took place in Mansfield, Annesley and another one in Mansfield. And as such, a coroner's inquest was not required for these events, and we didn't produce a fatal fire report. And just at 1.8, just to reiterate Dana's comments around the tragic circumstances of every fire death, but we do seek to learn lessons from these to see how we can inform our prevention strategy and try to prevent them occurring in the future. So moving on to the main body of the report, at 2.1. So during 2025, 4 people sadly lost their lives due to fire incidents in 4 separate occasions. 2 of these were within domestic premises, 1 was within an area of woodland and another was within a heavy goods vehicle cab on a business premise. And of those 4 incidents, 1 incident took place in Bassetlaw, 1 in Broxtowe, 1 in Rushcliffe and 1 in Ashfield. 3 fatalities were adult males and 1 was an adult female. 2 of these were over the age of 65, with the youngest being 53 and the oldest being 88 years of age. So just a quick summary at 2.4 in terms of what they involved. So 1 incident involved a gas explosion with an undetermined ignition source. 1 was classified as a naked flame ignition. 1 incident was determined as deliberate ignition via naked flame with the possible use of ignitable liquid. And 1 further incident was naked flame ignition of a liquefied petroleum gas vapor cloud during the act of cooking. And you can see at 2.5 our Charlie P profile in terms of we've collated the indicators there against each incident, and I've attached the Charlie profile as an appendix for you to look at if you want to look at that further in more detail. So just moving on to 2.7, so the activity in 2025. So as we talk about at each of these committees, we convene a serious event review group following every serious and fatal incident. So with each of these incidents, we convened a SIRG. And at 2.9, of the 2 fatal incidents which occurred at a dwelling during 2025, each received a level 3 CRAE, and this resulted in a total of 206 properties. And again, I've attached the CRAE levels as Appendix B just to give you that indication of what that actually involves. So a level 3 CRAE is our most serious response to a fire after the event. So this resulted in a total of 206 properties being contacted for us to give them fire prevention advice. And of these properties, we did 45 safe and well visits and 19 smoke alarms fitted. 14 addresses accepted advice and testing of their current provision and regarding future safe and well visits. So where a fire fatality took place at an address which was not a dwelling, which was our woodland area and the business premise, we did consider CRAE activity, but we deemed it not appropriate at the time, and we obviously didn't do anything. So moving on to 2.13. From a prevention perspective, our website and prevention pages are now more accessible to users with disabilities, and these can also be translated into 15 languages within the website itself, thereby helping a wider audience access our safety messages and referral schemes. A really clever bit of software on the website that can instantly translate any bit of text within that website. At 2.17, I'd just like to draw your attention to how our embedded links with Nottinghamshire County and Nottingham City trading standards, concentrating on electrical appliances and white goods which cause fires, to highlight trends and feed information back to manufacturers to allow for recall notices to be issued as appropriate. And this relationship has allowed for substantial work to be undertaken in conjunction with Nottinghamshire County trading standards in 2025 after one of our fatal fires involving a toaster within a domestic premise. So at 2.18, we work with trading standards who provided exemplar units and third-party laboratory testing of the appliance involved to determine whether any potential safety recalls are required. But the findings from trading standards concluded that the incident could have been caused by foreseeable misuse combined with failure of ejector mechanisms. And the combined efforts of trading standards, the fire investigation team and officers, and the testing laboratory took place between January and October 2025. So just I wanted to include that to give you an indication of the amount of work that we did following that fire to make sure that we were doing everything we could to prevent future occurrences, and certainly send that back up into the sort of national conversation around it. Within the Community Safety Engagement team, we hold quarterly fatal fire meetings to look at these fatalities against our Charlie P profile and outcomes from His Majesty's Coroner preventing future death reports nationally. So by reviewing these reports, we look at emerging trends and areas for potential improvement and make sure these are acknowledged and planned into our future work stream. So we have a whole scheme of work underneath that where we look at those national preventing future deaths reports and see what we could do differently or if any improvements to our provisioning we can make. So just to very quickly summarise the activity we have planned in 2026, I'm going to just talk about 2.21 and then on to 2.25. So we're going to look at our Charlie P profile in line with a review of our safe and well provision to make sure that it's still relevant to our fatal fires and make sure we're still targeting the correct people. But in 2026, following the fire fatality profiles of 2025, we are going to look at a targeted education campaign to focus on areas where HGV drivers take rest breaks and potentially cook, as well as contacting HGV companies within the Nottinghamshire area. So the corporate communications team will publish these safety messages across services social media platforms, and we will also visit known rest sites to put up literature and talk to people around the dangers of cooking within a confined space of a cab. And we'll also be doing an e-bike and e-scooter lithium-ion battery safety campaign in conjunction with Nottinghamshire Police, with joint resources designed to highlight safety concerns and the legislation regarding their usage on public and private roads. And we have secured a grant from local government to support this work around e-bike and e-scooter safety across Nottinghamshire. So we're going to collaborate with local partners, businesses, trading standards and organise community events to deliver key safety messages, because lithium-ion batteries continue to present a risk of fire. And that is my summary of the report, unless there's anything you would like me to say.
Super, thank you. Well, yes, questions and comments. So, Jim?
Yeah, two things, fantastic by the way. Two things there. Obviously, if there's a fire and there's a body, you still go through all the motions, because until you get that coroner's report, you've got to treat it. So you've got the same expense, the same hassle, the same stress, yeah? Right.
Absolutely, Councillor. Yeah. So obviously the dignity of the deceased is always at the forefront of the mind, and there are different. So when there's been a fire fatality, that can present in a different way. So we may have rescued the individual, and they may be outside the premises when we get there, because we believe there was a chance to save that life. In which case they'll be transported in conjunction with our EMS colleagues to an appropriate place. If it is clear that there are no signs of life and they've been either pronounced dead at scene from our EMAS or hazardous area response team colleagues from EMAS, then that body will be left in situ, and then the investigation will be undertaken in conjunction with CSI and under the, as a police investigation where we contribute, treating that individual with dignity, but trying to ascertain the cause. So it depends on the circumstances of the incident as to what happens.
Immense stress. I attended a dead child at a fire once, unbelievable compared to what I've seen things in the military, but it's not the same.
No, it's an extremely stressful thing. We have, and again, just for your assurance, we have a lot of welfare wrapped around our fire investigators and the fire investigation team. It's one of the worst things you can go to. So yeah.
And sorry, the second one was, I like this campaign with the e-bikes, etc. Could you involve us a bit more in that? Because this is one area I often say to people, right, if you had a wish list for us councillors where we could help you, what would it be?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely make sure we I'll get my team to send the information to you.
Fantastic, thank you. Excellent. I'd like to get involved in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, yes. Sorry.
Are we seeing an uptick then in fires as a result of the e-bikes and e-scooters?
So they present
is it a big issue.
It is a reasonable issue, and it's not just fires; it's the use on the roads and how people are deregulating them to make their bikes/scooters go faster. So that links into my work with the Road Safety Partnership in particular. In terms of fires, as we see, everything has a lithium-ion battery. People are using aftermarket chargers or not the charger that came with the device. Where people store them, they do present a hazard. They are not inherently dangerous. So there's nothing. We don't need people to be afraid of them, but it's all about appropriate use, appropriate charging, appropriate storage. Because again, we see some people storing them in. If they have one escape route in and out of their flat or dwelling, for example, if they are in the hallway and there is a fault on that battery, then it can impede that escape route. So we do a lot of work in our prevention work with that in terms of raising awareness. But like all technology, sometimes it fails.
It does, yeah, indeed.
I think battery fires are a problem across the sector as well. You know, discarded batteries we're seeing in back of refuse vehicles
that's
are quite common now.
Yeah.
The refuse
All the
lorries.
way through to electric vehicles, you know, that are charged on people's drives.
Yeah.
So we're seeing an increase in that, but nationally that's a definite upward trend.
On our litter picks, we're actually separating the vapes now.
Yeah,
You know.
Yeah, of course, vapes, yeah, they're the same, aren't they, charged, I believe.
yeah. Everything's
The surprise to me, sorry to jump in, Jay, it's not a question, but the surprise to me was the LPG in the heavy goods. Wow.
It was a
Sounds a
really
bit
sad
bizarre.
occasion, and that was simply he was cooking his dinner, set it up at a small burner. That had the
Yeah.
explosion from that, which sadly proved fatal.
I've seen it
But
a
like
lot
we
on the
said, it's
continent,
very, very common,
yeah.
and something that we are really keen to work locally and nationally to try and prevent, because it's a tragic incident.
Terrible.
Double hazard because then he's in a vehicle with fuel, etc. Wow.
Yes, and
Yes.
I mean, literally being in such a confined space, it just
Oh.
there's no time to
Look.
no, awful. The toaster incident, which had thorough investigation of yourselves and trading standards then. So where has that gone to then? Was there a particular fault identified?
No, so
or
there was
just-
nothing that could be pinpointed as a fault of the product or the manufacturer.
Right.
It was, you know, and again, these things are, you know, recreating the exact circumstance of the
Yeah.
event is a bit of a science in itself. So there's a significant amount of testing done around the ejector mechanism. Is there potential for that to fail and stay down, and the elements to continue to be heated? You know, how is it fused? All those sorts of things. So there was a significant amount of work done with the fire
Yeah.
investigation team, but there was no fault on behalf of the manufacturer identified.
Just to highlight, this has been through the coronial process, and it was all published in a public hearing. But just the extent of that, it literally involved the recycling of that ejector mechanism, pressing it down, running it through and through in a controlled
Yes.
environment
Yeah.
to really stress test that approach. And I think the work of the fire investigation team, but also the work of the trade and standards team and the research establishment around making sure that they really get to the bottom of that individual's tragic death is an astounding professionalism in terms of that work.
Yeah,
It's really
no,
good.
it's so detailed as well.
Yeah,
isn't it? It's well, literally forensic, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It is,
So,
yeah,
literally.
and quite right too. I mean, but no, people. I think people can take assurance, can't they, that should something awful like this happen, then you're taking it all very, very seriously and
Very
trying
thorough and robust,
to
yeah.
look towards, if there are any preventative measures identified, then we go to the next steps, don't we?
Absolutely, Chair, and I think I'd like to just highlight to you all that of those fatalities, none were known to us as a service. So we always, you know, we do have the inherent risk that we would have been to a property or a person and either engaged with them or they're waiting for one of our services, and they then tragically subsequently may suffer an injury or worse. But in this year, none of the four individuals are known to the service in any way. So, you know, we are trying to get to those, you know, trying to proactively and identify any individual at risk and get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And another sad but interesting thing is we're still having the fallout from COVID, aren't we? With this victim who literally had no sense of smell, so didn't
Yeah,
get the warning
read that,
signs that something was amiss. So that's really, brings it home, doesn't it? Right, so any other comments
Thank you.
or queries on this? So we've got the recommendation to scrutinise and draw assurance from the content of the report, and we endorse the approach taken to fatal and serious fires, including services prevention activities and learning processes from these events. So the learning process, as with everything, is ongoing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We continually, things happen and we investigate and hopefully get the message across to minimise such future incidents. Good, thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we'll now go on to item 5, which is the service delivery performance report. And so Damien, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you. This is our standing agenda item.
Yeah.
We will go through the response, prevention and protection activity that Tom will take us through. And again, give you the latest quarter
Popular name in the late
data.
70s, I think.
Unlike last time, I can't get the names wrong.
I think the important bit to highlight this, and we mention it every time, but I think it's just important to remind everybody that this, because of the reporting mechanisms and the timescales, this covers quarter 3. So we're looking at October to December 2025 in terms of the data for this. So I'll start with Tom Staples.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So the first part of the report is quite data heavy. So again, like Tom, I don't intend to go through every section verbatim, but I'm happy to take questions following the report. So points 2.1 through really to 2.5 detail an increase, a general increase in incident numbers. And if I draw particular attention to 2.2, where we've seen quite a large increase in what we call special service call incidents. We are committed to supporting our ambulance colleagues, but the consequence of that is we are seeing an increase in calls to assist ambulance, particularly around the breaking into properties for medical emergencies. And we have seen a large rise in those kind of incidents that can largely account for that rise in incident numbers in the last quarter and going back further than that. Moving on to 2.5, again shows incident types by district, and unsurprisingly the City of Nottingham has the largest number of incidents. That's a regular trend that we see, obviously, with the population increase, mass down there. So 2.6, you'd probably be familiar with the definition of incident types, but I think it's worth just highlighting those again. We break down incidents into P1, P2 and P3 incident types, P1 being the most serious risk, immediate risk to life, and moving down the seriousness scale down to P3, where we classify those as a lower hazard to human life, environment, property or heritage. 2.8, I would like to just highlight as a key community risk management plan target of 8 minutes for the in attendance time. So that's the time that we mobilise appliances to the time they get to the incident. We've set the key target there at 8 minutes, which is 480 seconds. In quarter 3, I'm pleased to say that average attendance time was below target at 7 minutes 47 seconds, which is better than target and 15 seconds faster than the same period in 24-25. Now, we have put a lot of work into improving our in-attendance times, and that can range from trying to get crews out of the doors quicker, and then better use of the technology that we use to book mobile to incidents, and then when we get to incidents, we essentially press another button to say that we're there. Sort of better education to crews about how they can be more efficient with that has seen an improvement in that attendance time, really. The graph in figure 5 does actually show that we are understandably slower when we have busier periods through the summer and the hotter months, and that largely can be attributed to greater travel distances for appliances when they're having to cover other people's areas due to increases in activity. So that time from the incident coming through fire control to us getting to the incident can obviously increase as we're busier. So that graph just details that one, really. Moving on then from 2.9 onwards, the next few sections show some on-call data. So on-call availability in 2.9 averages 82.8%. We have a service target of 85%, so we are just falling short of that internal target. However, if I can just highlight 2.11, when we compare ourselves nationally, we have a very positive on-call availability target of 85%, and the national average is 66%. So the table in figure 6 just shows each of our on-call stations and their average availability through quarter 3. As you can see, some are near 100%, particularly Warsop we always highlight, and Hucknall very close to 100%. However, we are aware that some of these stations do fall quite short of our internal targets, particularly the stations of Blidworth, Harworth and Southall, and we are aware of those obviously, and we run recruitment campaigns specifically to try and improve availability at those stations. And we've currently got 11 on-call firefighters in training, and we're just running processes to fill 2 further courses throughout the rest of 2026. And the take-up for those courses for the remainder of the year is positive. We're hopeful that we're going to get some good numbers through, which will feed through to general availability, but particularly targeted at those problem stations. 2.12, just moving on, again shows a longer term overview for on-call availability per quarter of the last 5 years. And we did introduce a dual contractor policy because a lot of our on-call firefighters are dual contractors, so they're whole-time firefighters and on-call firefighters. One of the main consequences of the introduction of the dual contractor policy was that we have enforced sort of welfare breaks now between a firefighter coming off whole-time duty and then going straight into their on-call duties. And we make them take a break now, and we knew there would be some consequences for availability there, so we accept that as a natural consequence of that increase in welfare for those people. 2.13 talks about whole-time appliance availability. There's a range of reasons again why those appliances can become unavailable, through mechanical faults through to training that we sometimes take appliances off the run for. But again, we have very good whole-time availability, and the target there for whole-time availability appliances is 98%. Pleased to report in 2.14 that we have exceeded that target, and whole-time appliance availability is averaging 99.1% in quarter three. Excuse me. Moving on to 2.16, the following few paragraphs talk about joint fire control, which is shared with Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service. And a key part of our commitment is to ensure that we are mobilised as quickly as possible through joint fire control. So we have a metric detailed in 2.17 that the percentage of 999 calls answered within 7 seconds. The target we set ourselves for this is 96% across both services. Figure 8 shows performance over the last 8 completed quarters, with 95.9% of calls answered within 7 seconds in quarter 3 of this year, so very, very close to target. 2.18, I would just like to highlight the second metric we talk about through joint fire control is the call handling times for the most serious type of incidents, so the P1 and P2 incidents that I referenced earlier. The target for this is within 86 seconds, so that is the time that the call is answered through to mobilisation of resources. And we have done a lot of work with our control colleagues to try and reduce that time to as low as possible for obvious reasons. And I'm pleased to report that we're now answering P1 and P2 calls within 64 seconds, which is a lot better than our target of 86 seconds. And because we're consistently doing that better across both services, control do intend to lower that target for next year. I can't at this point give you the exact target, but it will be lowered from 86 seconds through to next year, so that's good news. 2.19 talks about the mobilisation system availability. So we currently mobilise through a company called Sistel. That company provide the mobilising system for on-call and whole-time and officer mobilisations. So it's quite a complicated system that they operate for us. But the 2.19 and 2.20 highlight that system's availability, and the target being 99%, and in quarter 3 that was above target at 99.5%, despite when it does go off the run, the consequences for that are obviously can be quite serious, but we have backup systems in place to ensure that should that system be unavailable, it's not a case that we can't mobilise resources. We still can, but not through our preferred method. And that concludes the data for the response element of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, before we go into the next bit, questions and comments. So Jim and Nick.
Yeah, your response time, is that to the first incoming call? Because I imagine you get 10 people ringing you.
Yeah, it's from the time that we're notified of the incident to the time that the first appliance books in attendance. So that obviously, if there are more than one appliances going, that can change depending on how many and where they're coming from. But from the time of receiving the call to the time we get to an addressable incident.
And the call handling is that first call. So I imagine if you get 10 people ringing
Yeah.
about a fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It looks like, obviously, we were concerned about the system or availability, weren't we? And that seems to be a lot better improved. I mean, I suppose the only thing, and you've given a reason for it, is in 2.12 on-call availability per quarter over the last 5 years. Obviously, changes the dual contract and breaks. We have got a bit of a downward trend for the last 2 years, haven't we? I don't know if there's anything to address that. It's nothing major, is it? But just there is a bit of a decline.
I think when we look at the breakdown per station, a few stations do account for that fall, and we are aware of them, and we are got specific recruitment campaigns for specific stations now. So the on-call recruitment campaigns, we look for people really around the Southwell area and try and encourage them. We're advertising in those areas as well to try and get people in specifically to address, with the consequential knock-on that the average availability for the whole on-call should improve. But they do constitute problems for us, sometimes recruiting in these areas, and then retention is also an issue. So yeah, we are aware of the council, yeah.
I think just to add to that, we've got the on-call support team, because places such as Harwood are currently struggling. That's particularly around somebody to be in charge of the fire appliance. So that one person or that one skill not being available then means that the whole appliance isn't available. So we use the on-call support team, which is whole-time members of staff, to try and support that as a temporary measure while we get people recruited, trained. It all takes so long, but it means that you have a knock-on. The thing with the on-call duty system is it takes continuous focus and energy. But I will just finish by saying we are still, well, I think we're in the top 3 or 4 services in the country in terms of performance. Not where we want to be, we want to continue to improve that, but it is relatively, we're still doing positively well.
Okay. Jodie.
Yeah, so yes, Southall, Harworth and Blynydd, they seem to be repeated issues around there. What is the issue? And is it even worth having stations there? Would it be better served in a more conducive area where you can?
Yeah, the appliances there, they still are a very key element to our overall fire cover. So even though where they're placed, they still serve areas around the county as well. So they're part of that overall 30 fire engines that you have responding to communities. What I would say is what we find, so Harworth, for example, used to be the best performing on-call section for probably about 10 years. We then had people retire, we had some sickness absence, and we've had a turnover of staff, and it's really taken an effect, particularly in terms of that, the skills of people to be there in terms of people in charge, and also the number of people. So we're putting loads of time and effort. Tom in the North group is putting loads of effort into supporting them, getting them back up. But you can lose somebody overnight on the on-call system. They can retire, they can leave by the nature of it. It takes them probably about 12 months for us to recruit somebody, train somebody. It then takes 2 years for them to be competent in role, so that they can fully contribute to that. And then probably another 18 months, 2 years, 3 years for them to be in a position where they can be in charge of that appliance. So what we see, and it is cyclical, it happens at all stations really, is that you'll have a period of really strong, stable process. Warsop, for example, at the moment, almost 100% availability. Hucknall, Stapleford, places like that. They are very, very fragile. And whilst the on-call is an absolute integral part to our response model, they provide over half of our fire engines. Really, I mean, the dedication that we get from our on-call people is incredible, but it's very vulnerable. And we have to keep a focus on it. You need to keep supporting it. And we also need to accept that there will be changes, but if we put the time and effort and focus into them, it's a fantastic model, I think, in terms of where we are. So I think I have confidence they're in the right place. We use a fire cover review. So we did a fire cover review in 2024. That told us the best places for our appliances. Got confidence they're in the right place. I think it's more around continuing that focus and drive to get people in, keep them, and get them trained. I think it's key.
I think it's worth saying, even our sort of worst performing stations is really are not that bad in terms of the national average. They're bad when you look at places like Warsop, who offer such good cover. The places like Harworth are around about the national average, a little bit below. I accept that, but they're not bad nationally.
Because, am I right, you've got to be within 5 minutes, live within 5 minutes, and obviously if you're at work, you've got to be, which I guess in this day and age is quite difficult.
Yeah, so you look at places like Southwell, which is traditionally a commuter area. You've got a lot of people living there who then work in the city or work away, and it presents real challenges. Harworth, traditional mining village, really strong local community network in terms of support and on-call. We don't have that now. Still a huge, really strong community in terms of supporting the station, but a few key changes and we lose that. So the model, we're trying to be flexible with it. So we're trying to recruit people to work from home now, that sort of new generation of working, trying to see how we can use our stations to support people as a place to work so then they can be available and be on call. I think it's fair to say there's always a bit of lag. As society changes, we then have to change to keep up with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wendy.
Thank you. Really, it's a statement, and it's you've just kind of, Jodie and Damien have just really said what I was going to say, and it's about attracting. Okay, it's about attracting the applicants, and I know Southall pretty well, and really just backing up what you said there. People do commute, and they're not necessarily, and they don't have that flex to be able to go for those positions, yeah.
And there is no upper age limit. However, we tend to see applicants from sort of early 20s through to late 30s in terms of the applicants that we tend to attract on our approach. So again, the demographic of the area, Southwell is an older demographic, and it's difficult to get to those people. There is still, though, and I genuinely believe, a huge misunderstanding in communities around. Loads of people know there's a fire station in Southwell. Probably a quarter of those will know it's an on-call station. Vast majority of the population of our communities don't know what the on-call is, don't really care what the on-call is, they just want a fire engine when they're down 999. So the work we do with members, the information we've shared recently around recruitment, we had over 90 applicants for the last recruitment process. So getting the information out there, making people aware of it, and the opportunities that it presents to people is continuous work, but it's work we appreciate members' support on, so it is helpful.
Those 90 applicants that you had, were they all within the geographic criteria?
Majority of them, yes. We do get some, again, and it's a perfect example, we get some people applying for an on-call firefighter thinking it's a whole-time job, so again, just a total misunderstanding, but the on-call support team, the crews on stations are out in communities trying to recruit, raise awareness, do that piece of work continuously. So I think out of those 90, we're aiming to get 24 to fill 2 courses. So it's quite a big attrition rate, but we have exactly the same standards for our whole-time firefighters as we do for the on-call. That minimum standard is the same across the board, so we do tend to see that, but we will work, if somebody has an interest in being an on-call firefighter, we will work with them to help them get to that level.
It's not lost on us how much we ask of the on-call. Damien says the standards are the same, the time that we ask for people is a big commitment where they've got full-time jobs all the time as well, so it's a continual struggle.
And Jim?
Yeah, I saw we were talking about the recruiting last time. I saw the campaign social media. Have those 90 come from just that social media thing?
Yeah, that and hard-working communities as well. So the on-call support team, Tom's teams on stations, they will get out. The majority of candidates we get who are successful through on-call already know somebody who is on the on-call. Okay. So we're looking at different schemes. We're looking at a refer a friend scheme. We're looking at things like that because the people on station doing that job day in, day out are far greater advocates than me, than anybody else, far better than any poster we can share. So it always works.
Think about the dogs again.
Yeah, they are a great advocate for the fire service. So we're continually trying to change. We're part of the National Fire Chief Council on-call group to try and learn and understand what's working well and also share what we're doing well with them as well. So we keep trying.
Good, excellent. The other interesting thing about this report, as ever, is sometimes you have to double read the targets, because sometimes when you read a line that says something like this was below target, in the world of normal targets, you think, oh no.
I underline that section myself.
Some are good, yeah. So it's good.
So I always, I don't know if you're the same, but I always have to double read when I read. What is red on there? Is this good or bad? But no, that's it's good as ever.
Thank you.
And the point about the on-call fire services, as colleagues mentioned, is about, as far as the public are concerned, they don't need to know whether it's an on-call service station. They just want, when there's a crisis, they want to respond to it, and that's why you do such a good job in providing the service, whether it's on-call or whether it's full-time. So keep up the good work on that. So community safety and engagement, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. So I would just like to say, believe it or not, I've shortened this report down.
Were you advised to do that?
No. I'm conscious I've been, and I hope you appreciate the work that's done within my team.
Yes,
but I definitely wanted to try and make it a bit more concise for you. So please, if there's anything that's missing that you were looking forward to receiving, then I will obviously go away and get that for you. Again, I'll just summarise the main points. Please bring me back to anything that you want me to talk about. Starting at 2.21, so within Q3 we've done over 3,500 safe and well visits, meaning that we are on target to achieve that CRMP target of 16,000 safe and well visits in 25-26. And just, as the Chair has asked for, that national comparison, we're still we've undertaken almost 12.8, almost 13 visits per 1,000 population, which compared to the English average of fire and rescue services of 10 per 1,000 population. So we are above the national sort of average there. Of those safe mob visits we delivered in Q3, 53% were to those over the age of 65, and 46% of those who identified as having disability. And again, age and disability being the key characteristics of our Charlie profile, which you can find as an appendix on the fatal fire report that I presented earlier. Moving you on to 2.26, obviously safeguarding is one of those key responsibilities within the team, and in Q3, where the outcome is that all the referrals made by the service have been accepted to meet the threshold for safeguarding, so just indicative of the work we do to triage those responses, train our personnel effectively, and make sure the ones we do submit are suitable to try and reduce the burden on our partner agencies. At 2.28, I've included a summary of the immense amount of work that the team has done. I'm not going to go through each bullet point, but please, I would like to draw members' attention to the wide range of work the team does, and this is an ongoing thing every month, every week, every quarter. So a really, really busy team operating across multiple strands. One bullet point I will draw attention to, which is the fourth one up from the bottom. We did deliver some air fire information on ITV in mid-November with 1.4 million viewers, so a very effective bit of safety campaign there. At 2.30, tying into the fatal fires reports, obviously we have some targets around our Tier 2 fire investigations. So in Q3, 96% of our Tier 2 fire investigations were undertaken by NFRS, so Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service personnel, against our 90% target. 59% of those weekday investigations were undertaken by the core fire investigation team against the CRMP target of 75%. So just trying to acknowledge we didn't hit that target, but that's due to some maternity leave and sickness within the team. So as with all the areas where we missed targets, we are working actively to try and put measures in place to achieve those targets. And again, we're still delivering those investigations, but it was the flexi duty officers that went out. So obviously we have that core team, and we'd like them to do those weekday investigations to be efficient use of our time and resources. And that is the summary for community safety engagement, a much more concise summary than I have been known to give in the past.
But at the same time, it's concise, but it's still comprehensive, and it does reflect the amount of work that the team does. So any comments or questions on this?
Just out of interest, are air fryers a particular risk? I've not got one, but
no, I've not either.
People have tell you about them all the time. It's like vegans, isn't it? Straight away. But, my brother's got one, never stops going on about it. But
I think it's like any piece of piece of equipment. If you use your air fryer appropriately in line with manufacturer's instructions and you attend it whilst it's in operation, it is perfectly safe. If you allow significant amounts of grease and fat to build up in the tray, then if that is heated up for a long period of time, that can cause a fire. So it is just those, you know, as with everything, we had an incident with an air fryer. It was part of that response through how we respond to every incident in terms of what can we do to increase awareness. So if they're used appropriately, cleaned out, and in line with manufacturer's instructions, they will be fine. But they're a good bit of kit to have.
Yeah. It's also simple things as well, like ensuring you pull it out away from walls and away from cupboards. Yeah.
I don't put stuff on top of it.
Yeah, and also the key message that came through from that bill is not everything you see on TikTok is correct. Sorry for that spoiler. A lot of young people, especially students, taking cooking tips and cleaning advice, like fill it up with hot soapy water and then turn it back on, is not a good way to clean it. But people using TikTok as their first point of call for any information, and like Tom says, just following manufacturer's instructions is definitely the way forward.
Trouble is, but not that I'm being stereotypical here, but a lot of people, we just never read instructions, do we? So now, a couple of things. On 2.27, where we're talking about the county youth justice and the young people
Yes.
who are taken to court for relevant driving offences. So what is it? I mean,
So it is an intervention we do in conjunction with our police colleagues, so
Yes.
just to try and to stop young people becoming first-time entrants into the criminal justice system. So where it's a first offence and it's an appropriate level, if something is very serious, then obviously the police will deal with it. But we trying very hard to engage with young people. So if they do make a mistake, then we will work with them to highlight the areas where that is a risk, why they shouldn't do it, and then that takes them out of that system. And obviously it is a relatively small amount of numbers, but it is 3 people hopefully have had the opportunity to not have something on their record, and hopefully have amended their behaviour. And one of them, who we didn't meet, just didn't turn up.
And also, does it sort of show them sort of quite brutally the potential consequences of?
Well, we're very trauma informed in our approach with community safety engagement. So we've done a lot of work within the team around how we deliver our prevention activities, and there's a lot of research around that showing trauma isn't the way to get. It doesn't bring about that behavioural change. So we used to do sort of virtual reality. As an example, it was a virtual reality simulation. We could put people in, put them in an RTC with blood, with a bit of jeopardy and with a bit of fear. But the trauma-informed approach is to not utilise that. It's to talk about consequences and talk about behavioural change. So we do, as a department and a service, we steer away from showing those things.
I think it's a really good example of how we're trying to be joined up with community safety partnerships, which all of your authorities will be part of. Nottinghamshire has the highest level of first-time entrants for young people into the criminal justice system. Yeah. It is really well evidenced around the detrimental effect that has on the long-term prospects of those young people. And we're really keen, like Tom says, to try and work with partners to try and avoid that. And obviously, the justice system has an absolute place, and for some cases, it has to go down that route. But we're working really closely with the police, with local authorities, with the youth intervention groups to make sure that we play part of that work. So it's really a good example of that sort of wider joined-up work around the long-term prospects of the city and county.
What kind of offences are we talking about to be referred to that?
Yes, that's a good question.
So yes, so this links into the work that I do and the team does within the Road Safety Partnership. So when we work with the Police and Crime Commissioner, one of the biggest, not one of the biggest complaint from residents to the PCC's office is around antisocial driving, and car cruising, that sort of stuff. So it's those low-level motoring offences where they are appropriate to be talked to.
We're talking speeding.
Potentially, yes, or or car cruising in I could certainly find out the categories for you.
Yeah. No, I'm just kind of interested because obviously speeding is a defined.
It's the big issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
And and also people who modify their vehicles as well.
Yeah, all
big,
that,
big
yeah,
issue.
those sorts of things, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's
That's a good idea.
and also sort of linked to that, talking with young people, you work with clay fields. I don't know whether any colleagues are familiar with clay fields. It's in, where is it? Beeston, I think. That way on, isn't it? But it's a secure unit for young people who have issues and problems. So you've been working with 14 young people in that. Is that a fairly new thing, or is that a long term?
I think we will always work with partner agencies. In terms of that specific secure unit, I'm not sure if we've been there before.
Okay.
But that's the sort of thing we are always trying to do. So it's almost an invisible thing that the team does, because that it's out of the public eye. It's not publicised.
No.
But we want to work with partners, and we want to work with our communities to make them as safe as we can.
Right. So, okay. Super. Right.
So we need a scheme for councillors, wayward councillors.
Brilliant idea. We're moving swiftly on. Fire protection.
Certainly, so that's at 2.32 onwards. So within fire protection, again, I've shortened this down, but it's still an extensive amount of work completed by the team in quarter three. Obviously, councillors, you will be aware that we moved our target from 1,500 fire safety audits down to 1,100 at a previous meeting. Within quarter three, we've done 250 fire safety audits, meaning we are on target to meet the revised commitment of 1,100 that was approved by members at this committee. And without ruining the surprise of next quarter, we have achieved that. We are 10 short or 5 short of that target on this date, so I have every confidence that we will meet that target. At 2.33 again, I'd just like to highlight that the range of activities the protection team have undertaken, so a significant amount of work in addition to our core work under the risk-based inspection programme. At 2.34, the completion of 1,650 business safety checks is a CRP commitment, and within the reporting period of this report, the service has undertaken 382 of these short fire safety audits, and we are on target to meet this commitment, and that's obviously in close conjunction with our response colleagues who undertake the vast majority of those audits. So our fire safety inspectors continue to work closely with response supervisory managers through shadowing visits undertaken as part of this qualification, and we still are at 95% of whole-time watches having at least one supervisory manager qualified to undertake unsupervised business safety checks. And we have over 30 people currently in development, over 30 supervisory managers who are working with my teams to achieve their qualification to enable them to do that. So we have a significant amount of work going on in the background to supervise them and mark their work, because obviously we are an accredited training centre, and 2 further cohorts planned in this year to really ensure we can deliver that. At 2.37, so during the reporting period of this report, so quarter three, we responded to 1,248 false alarms, which is a 2% increase on the same period of last year. And as members will be aware, these are broken down into 3 areas, which are false alarm malicious, false alarm good intent, and false alarm apparatus. And within this, we're classifying. Within the apparatus, we're classifying these unwanted fire signals, but as a national comparison, we are the same as our English counterparts at 4.3 unwanted fire signals per 1,000 population. At 2.38, within quarter three, we've attended 804 unwanted fire signals, with 197 at non-residential premises and 607 at residential premises. As you'll be aware, following each of these, we have a system in place to either talk to the owner or send them, the responsible person, or send them documentation to highlight their responsibilities. And in line with our CRP commitment of 25-28, we are committed to developing ways to reduce the number of unwanted fire signals that the service attends. And we're continuing to work with responsible persons to reduce these incidents and utilise national best practice in their reduction. And at 2.41, I just wanted to draw attention to, we are doing some of the work we're doing in the team will result in some slight reporting changes around unwanted fire signals, around definitions and what we're reporting. We're going to break that down into some more granular detail for you so you can scrutinise those more effectively. Because there is it's a bigger. You can have an on-work fire statement across all of our categories essentially, but I will be presenting that to you at a future committee once we've done that work. Within the joint audit inspection team, and I know that I've got another report on this in a minute, in quarter 3 they've conducted 27 inspections and 18 follow-ups in quarter 3, so quite a busy quarter, and still are the 122 premises on the joint audit inspection team list. We are working with the City Council to ensure that all the premises on the list are inspected within our 2-year timescale in line with our risk-based inspection programme, so we are prioritising those highest risk buildings. And then lastly, the building safety regulator, just to draw your attention to 2.46. In terms of BSR function, we've undertaken 63 completed tasks, 1 investigation unit, 83 in occupation jobs, which entail the review of these building safety cases and gap analysis, and 47 building control assessments, which has represented 336 hours of billable work within the period covered by this report. So again, fulfilling our commitments to the BSR there.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Just one.
No, Jim?
Yeah, accredited centre.
Yes, so we are accredited to Skills for Justice, so we, in terms of delivering training, so we can deliver our own deliver the qualification and award it. So again, significant amount of work from within the fire protection team to achieve that, and obviously that entails being inspected by the awarding body. They look at our processes, look at our, how we deal with learners, how we support them, what our complaints, all the things you'd expect from education institutions. So really, I'm really proud of that. That achievement, because that does, and again, it enables us to flex with demand. So as we need more supervision managers trained, we can provide those courses, and it's the best use of our fire safety inspectors' time.
I've set up 3 accredited centres within the educational system, and Wendy's involved in that as well. So that is an immense amount of work.
Sorry, just on that point, at the last meeting you highlighted around engaging with the East Midlands Combined County Authority, the Mayor, around that. So I have had a first meeting with adult learning section. They're looking at the possibility around supporting the funding of this training, but also broadening that as well. So thank you for that referral. We are continuing that conversation with them as well. So thank you.
Good.
Right, and actually just one thing on 2.33 where we've got the list of some of the activities. There's 70 follow-ups to complaints. Now, the complaints typically are, where are they rated?
You go out for a meal with your family and you see that there's a locked fire door.
So it's that sort of, so it's where a member of it could be anyone then who's spotted something.
Anything like that, and obviously we endeavour to get out to those within 48 hours of complaints, something like that, and that's utilising, obviously in office hours or normal office hours, our fire safety inspectors, then outside of that time, our out of hours function, which is one of the things highlighted from HMIC that we've implemented over the last year, which has been a real success, to provide that 24/7 access to a suitably qualified individual.
That's good practice. Excellent. Okay.
Could you just talk us through? Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, no, go on.
Sorry. The 46 other consultations with agencies such as Ofsted and the CQC.
Yes, so
just a little bit about that.
Yes, certainly, Councillor. So that's through that they will, if they want to do work or anything like that, then they will. That will, through that consultation process, that will come into us as one of the consultees on that process, and we will consult on whether the impact of that from a fire safety perspective. But obviously they are slightly different to your other sort of normal building consultations. They come from either Ofsted or CQC.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay. Well, that again, slim down but still comprehensive. So thank you for that. And just for the record, the recommendation is that we scrutinise and draw assurance from the performance of service delivery. So we're all happy with that.
I'm assured.
Good. Excellent. So we go on to item 6, which is the technical rescue review. Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Just to introduce us, so members have had a briefing on this at the member seminar and at group leaders, but this is to just recognise the formal governance around the review, and Tom Staples will take us through the technical rescue review and the process that we're taking.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Damien. So as Damien says, this review does detail the steps we've taken to implement the technical rescue changes that you've previously been briefed on. So just a very brief bit of background. The technical rescue response function is typically away from the sort of traditional firefighting model that we have. So a technical rescue response can be anything from a line rescue, using rope systems, to boat rescues, water rescues, and that's currently those skills are housed on 2 large units which we have at Newark and Highfields. The review has looked at alternative models to deliver the same level of service, so there's no loss of function here, it's just alternative proposals for delivery of those skills essentially. So a lot of consultation started really around the end of 2024 all the way through 25 and has culminated in the proposal set out within this paper really. So as I say, the current model is 2 large vehicles based at Newark and Highfields on which all of those skills are housed. And the outcome of the engagement, really looking at section 2.5, was the recognition that there are alternative ways to deliver those models and those services, and the reasons for doing that were apparent through the consultation. So 2.5 talks about, for example, if the unit at Highfields was a line rescue job, their boats were unavailable. So it was almost all our eggs were in one basket with these large units. One of the recommendations of the new proposals is that we spread out those functions around the service, and I'll go on to detail what those proposals are now. So 2.6, we are proposing that the rope rescues and the line rescue function is removed from the large units at Highfields and moved to Carlton and Arnold stations. We've done some work around the crewing models that we may need for that, and there are some personnel transfers that may be resulted from that, because those skills, particularly around line rescue, they're quite difficult to firstly obtain and then maintain competence within those skills. So we have put in the option of personnel movements as well as skill movements, and some people have taken us up on that. But where they haven't, we have got plans for initial courses to retrain people at Carlton and Arnold, and then obviously the maintenance of those skills as well moving forward. And again, within 2.6, there's a summary there of that, what I've just mentioned, moving the rope rescue capabilities to Carlton and Arnold, heavy rescue and shoring capabilities moving to Edwinstowe, large animal rescue capabilities will remain at Newark, as will the boat, so the swift water and flood rescue capabilities remaining at Highfields and Newark, where they currently are. Structural access capabilities moving to West Bridgford, and then the rollout of object removal capabilities, which I will just sort of clarify what that is, because it's quite an unusual term, and been available to all our whole-time stations. So object removal, largely we're talking about ring removal there. We get a lot of people coming to our stations, knocking on the door often, and they've got wedding rings, all sorts of rings that they just can't get off, and it's causing them sort of pain, swollen fingers, that kind of thing. Currently, because the equipment to remove those rings is on our large vehicle at Highfields, they are travelling a long time, sometimes to other stations to do that. So we've invested in equipment that's now on all our frontline appliances that will negate the need for the travel of that large unit, really, which is about, its fuel efficiency is very low. It's 10 miles to the gallon, something like that. It's such a large unit. So
to remove a ring.
And you wouldn't be using your
to remove a ring, yeah. And it can sometimes take quite a long time to remove a ring from someone. So that's a much more efficient way of doing that for a relatively small investment.
Okay.
So 2.8. So what we need to do to achieve this new approach then. So we will build proposals for a new training rig at Carlton Station to support the rope rescue. The bariatric, so that is the heavy person rescue training rig, which we currently have up at Retford. We will also move down to Carlton because of the interoperability of that rescue with the line systems that we often have to use. It makes sense for us to try and get all that training together at Carlton. 2.9 talks about moving the heavy rescue capability to Edwinstowe. So by heavy rescue we mean really transport incidents that don't involve your standard vehicle types, so large goods vehicles, heavy goods vehicles, trains, that kind of thing, which mean that we have much more substantial equipment to do that. We propose to move all that kind of capability to Edwinstowe Fire Station. That will mean that we will need to do a bit of building work at Edwinstowe, for which planning proposals have been submitted, and to house new vehicles to put that equipment on. Those planning applications are in progress. So moving on to 2.11, I think I've already mentioned that Newark and Highfields will retain the current capabilities of water rescue and flood rescue. The skills required, as I've alluded to, for those kind of rescues are difficult to obtain and maintain. Those competency to the personnel, and the sort of the culture of those stations is really geared up to water rescue, and their physical location as well is ideal for that. So those skills will remain at Newark and Highfields, and we'll also invest in some new equipment that will enhance flood rescue capabilities, particularly around the service. So what that means is we won't have to send the powered boats, because the boats we've got at Newark and Highfield have outboard motors on for swift water rescues. Where we get low level flood rescues, sometimes those boats are not appropriate because you physically can't get the outboard motor in because it's not deep enough. So what we will do is invest in rescue sleds, which are floating paths, for want of a better phrase, which can be pulled by less trained people across all our services, so level 2 trained people rather than the sort of level 3 trained people who are the boat operators. So that represents an investment that will spread those skills out again. 2.13 goes on to talk about the proposals for West Bridgeford Station. Again, the structural access capabilities that currently sit on the vehicles at Newark and Highfields will move to West Bridgeford. By structural access, we mean the ability to get into buildings, so cut through walls, doors, that will improve our ability to access buildings where we can't traditionally get into to fight fires. The demand for those skills is quite low, so the ideal place for them is at somewhere like West Bridgeford, because their general sort of demand on their resources is low, so it will afford them time to train on those new skills. We will have to make some small adjustments to fire appliances to house these new skills, and again that's been budgeted for within the proposals. So that really summarises the proposals, and I just want to draw members' attentions to the financial implications, because the costs associated around this project are essentially cost neutral, and within the replacement for the 2 large vehicles, the budget that we've allocated to do that prior to this proposals will pay largely for what we're proposing, to spread these skills out around the service. So ultimately cost neutral, and within the 1.68 million already approved in the capital programme for replacement of the vehicles.
Quick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, very detailed. I learned a new word today, bariatric. I've never had people come across that before,
yeah.
but that's unusual.
It's heavy person rescue, so typically 25 stone plus, which is an increase in sort of incident type that we're attending, whilst that is primarily an ambulance-led incident. Just the need for support and help from the fire services is an increasing area of demand for us. Sometimes that can include quite technical rope systems to get people out of particular upstairs bedrooms, and the removal of parts of the building to do that, which again come into the structural access. So all these skills tie into those kind of incidents. It's one of those incidents that we perhaps didn't see that much of maybe 10 years ago, but we are seeing more and more of these rescues now. They take a lot of time and technical skill and resources to do that. But as I said before, we are committed to helping EMAS
So,
for
I mean,
reasons.
I'm just wondering about, I mean, obviously, you get an image, don't you? It's usually like, a very large American person or, fat person, etc. It's like something like the Simpsons. I think it's the Simpsons episode.
I suppose just for the record,
I have to be
we
careful what I'm
don't
saying.
cause any offence to Americans.
Say it as it is.
But they actually have a whole programme.
Yes, I go on holiday to Florida. No, but I'm just thinking, in terms of that, though, it's
AI-generated video.
joking aside, obviously, there's a cost and a health implication for those people, isn't there? As people are getting more and more obese, then, joking aside, we'll have to presumably modify ambulances, vehicles, and that in itself is a hazard, as you say, getting people out of buildings.
Bariatric ambulances do already exist, so they have wider doors at the back and improved suspension, that kind of thing for the increased weight. And some of the shoring capabilities that we need to sometimes put into effect, we sometimes have to prop the stairs up because the weight of these people coming down the stairs, plus usually 6 firefighters, maybe a paramedic, that is a lot of weight on a staircase. So there's a massive investment needed just to get these rescues effected. And so, like I say, sometimes we've had to remove windows from upstairs and cut out the brickwork. So they're not always straightforward rescues. So whilst demand is relatively low compared to traditional areas of demand, it's a one that we have to fund and invest in and train for.
How do we, sorry, just go develop on this. I mean, how would we know when somebody's there? I suppose you'd have to turn up to the incident, wouldn't you, and realise you might have sent the wrong ambulance or you might need to get more equipment, etc.
Often the calls come from family members or carers through the ambulance service often, and then we arrive and we assess the situation and the resources needed can vary from the shoring equipment through to the line rescue, sometimes just through to numbers of people. It's
People, yeah.
Gosh, yes, it makes you think, doesn't it? And interesting, another issue that is obviously growing over the last few years is your flood response work, because we all know in our respective authorities that in the last few years in particular we've had flood issues and all these indications are that sadly, despite everything that's done, we're probably going to continue with them in many ways. So that is, I think, encouraging to see. And I think
with that as well, we see repeated issues around Hucknall, Worksop, Retford, Loudham, those sorts of areas. And like Tom mentioned, we send our specialist resource, our specialist trained people who are actually trained for your swift water rescues on places like the Trent and things like that. It ties up that resource at the moment. So we've invested quite heavily in making sure we've now got these floating platforms, the sleds available, so that all of our staff here in Nottinghamshire, and they're not everywhere in the UK, but everyone in Nottinghamshire is water rescue responder trained, so they can go and do that work and get people out of their homes or provide reassurance as it's needed.
Often, just to add to that, obviously the nature of flooding, if areas like Loudham have got low-lying low-level water, it means that the rivers are high, so the risk of floodwater rescue is obviously increased as well. So the tying up of those specialist resources at low-lying water removes them from the ability to rescue people from swift water. So this proposal sort of answers that quandary, really.
And Jim?
Just enlarge on the large animal rescue, please. I'm sorry to look straight after the human rescue. But
So again, large animal rescue often goes hand in hand with rising river levels.
I was thinking that,
Animal, horse and cow rescue are the two sort of big ones. And we have got specialist equipment to rescue animals from water. It's a specialist skill to do that. We have to get people trained in water rescue and animal rescue to those scenes. So again, quite people heavy.
great
Excuse
PR.
the pun, yeah. But
PR.
an essential, if you're the farmer or the horse owner, that is an essential part of the service that we offer. So the animal rescue courses, whilst demand is relatively low, the skills required are high, and again the maintenance of those skills is a constant demand.
It's one thing we're trying to raise awareness of, especially with rural communities, is if we have a horse that's fallen in stables or if they've been lame and they can't get up, we have the skills, we have the training, we have the safety mechanisms to help support them. What we find is that we get a significantly low level of incidents like that, but we know the occurrences are quite high. So we have the specialist capability, It's just very underutilised at the moment. People put themselves at risk.
Yeah.
People
That's
put the
risky.
animals' welfare at risk,
Yeah.
trying to deal with it themselves. I think particularly farming communities notorious for trying to deal with stuff themselves, are very resilient, and we get called often a bit too late. So we are trying to raise that awareness that we do have these capabilities. They're based at Newark. They're available across the whole county. And we have trained people, we've bought their equipment, we do have them there to be used. So again, trying to raise that profile is an important part.
Fantastic.
That's a really good point,
Love it.
because I suspect that farmers or whoever is in a situation like that, that they probably don't even think about.
No.
And we find people don't want to waste our time.
Well,
That's what we
again,
hear all the
yeah.
time. But we are literally
Yeah,
here
that's what
for
we're
that.
here for.
So yeah, exactly.
And we've probably mentioned this before, but when a situation like that happens, the way of calling you, is it still via the 999?
339, it will go through to our control room. And again, our control operators are fantastic people. They're there to help, and they will have a conversation with you. Yes, it's for emergencies, but if welfare or the well-being of anyone or anything is at risk, that is what we're there for.
Yeah.
So I think there is a real hesitance. It's
There
drummed into us all the time.
definitely
Don't bring 999 unless
Yes.
it's an emergency.
Yes.
Well, they would be very much classed as an emergency.
Yeah. So if we're upping the awareness of that, that's
Yeah.
got to be welcome, I think. So
A bit more than the cat up the tree.
But we still attend that as well. So we had one a couple of weeks ago. And again, whilst you never see a cat skeleton in a tree, we find that people do then put themselves at risk, and often we end up mobilising to make sure that
Get them and the cat.
very worried owners don't.
well, the
don't do
cat's
that.
totally relaxed. And,
Can't come down when it's red. How many of these animal incidents do you typically get a year?
It's quite a low number. I can get exact figures for you, but it is a low number. Again, normally the ones we do get mobilised to are where floods, like so we have sheep that have been stranded, things like we have had a couple of. We do get horse rescue where they've been trapped. The vet service, the veterinary people from the veterinary fraternity are know about us, and it's normally when they're called that they will then request us, or indeed the RSPCA.
Right.
They are well aware of us, so we'll go and support those. But again, it is relatively low numbers together.
And you mentioned, sorry, just slightly moving on, Edwinstowe, so building work needs to take place there?
Yeah.
What stage is that, and what's the sort
It's
of
at
timescale?
planning, I believe. Has the planning
So
application
we've
gone in?
just submitted
Yeah.
the provisional outline planning permission for that and Carlton. So these plans are subject to local planning approval.
Yeah.
Edwinstowe, it's a garage. That's what we need to house. So we can have a specific vehicle for heavy rescue.
Right.
At Carlton, it is a training rig, so a tower. So it's going to go on the side of the smokehouse that we've got at the moment, a specialist rope rescue training tower. So as with everything, they're all subject to that planning
Don't
permission.
foresee any issues?
We don't, no. We have good relationships. We've got a good team who are working on that. But obviously it takes time and we have to go through that process.
Yeah.
So we will offer a briefing to the members of the planning committees to express our need for it and the benefits it will bring to the whole of the county having that as well. So.
good. And then finally, the overall engagement and consultation you carried out included the Fire Brigade Union. Everyone's
I
clear and
do.
happy with the
Yeah, we really commend the work that Tom, that Andy and the team have put into engaging. They've met every single watch which is affected. I will be honest, that there are mixed opinions. Some people are very passionate about the roles and they're very passionate about the Specialist Rescue Unit. It's like a Thunderbird unit, it's got everything on it and some real people who've dedicated their career to being those specialists. I think everyone, if they don't necessarily all agree with the proposal, they understand why we're doing it. And that's what we've been really clear around, is making sure they understand the reasons for it. This was initiated by the workforce initially, who raised concerns around maintaining competence against all of those skills. We've listened to them, we've worked really closely with them, and we continue to work with them. So Andy, Tom and Lee Holmes, one of our group managers, going out proactively, seeing every watch that's been affected, listening to concerns, answering questions, making sure we have a really proactive approach. But Fire Brigade Union have been really well engaged. They've offered some really good points into this as well, which we've taken on board. So I think it's a really good demonstration of how things can work effectively.
Okay, any more questions or we'll move on? So, well, for the record, we've got the recommendation for assurance that Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service has given due consideration to the new technical rescue delivery model, which will be implemented throughout 26-27, and we support the approach of the implementation plan for the technical rescue review. So, all happy with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So that takes us on to item 7. This is the update, the Joint Audit and Inspection Team in East Midlands Combined County Authority Remediation.
It rolls off the top.
It does,
Yes.
doesn't it? Really,
So I think in the post-Grenfell era, we have seen a huge amount of legislative change, but also around scrutiny, particularly initially on buildings over 18 metres that had both the ACM cladding, which was notoriously involved in the Grenfell incident, but also other types of cladding, and the whole tightening of regulation around built environment particularly, so people's homes in high-rise buildings. When the new government came in, they extended that to buildings over 11 metres, and the two elements, joint audit and inspection team, is the collaboration we have with the City Council, which has been in place since the Grenfell era, and the work that was taken around remediation in that area. And then obviously the Mayor has now taken overall convening approach and convening authority across Nottingham, Nottinghamshire, Derby and Derbyshire around looking at expanded remediation with an aim of ensuring that all buildings are remediated by 2029. So Tom is absolutely at the heart of this with his fire protection team, and he'll give you a bit more detail in terms of those two projects.
okay, thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Damien. So I know that you've raised, Chair, around acronyms. This is an acronym-heavy report, so but I will be using the acronym JAIT for the Joint Audit Inspection Team and EMCCARP for the East Midlands.
Oh, we know all about it.
We
We
know.
know, yes,
I know, absolutely, and I fully understand that, and I will be talking about LRAP, the Local Remediation Acceleration Plan. So I've explained them in the report, but please, if I do slip into another one, tell me off, I'll explain it. So, in terms of the JAIT, this was established in 2019. It is an ongoing successful partnership between the Fire Service and the Nottingham City Council, focused on the regulation of our high-rise sort of over 18-metre buildings in Nottingham City. It was established due to the large number of in-scope buildings within the city and the recognition that a joint inspection approach would more effectively meet the requirements of the Regulators Code 2014, to undertake inspections in a way that minimises the burdens on business. So we're really cognisant of our obligations to regulate under our legislation, but also cognizant of, as a responsible person, they need to be engaged with in a considerate way that allows them to conduct their business. They don't need, previous to the JAIT, obviously we would come and inspect under the Regulatory Reform Order, and then the Council would inspect under the Housing Act, and that they'd have multiple inspections and multiple visits to coordinate. So we've brought that into one place to be more efficient and effective. And at 1.3, just summarising, that joint inspection of premises and regulation of the most applicable legislation, either the Regulatory Reform Order or the Housing Act 2004. So EMCCARP, as members will be fully aware, was established on 28th February 2024 following the approval of the EMCCARP regulations in that year. And in the East Midlands, 1.6, this involvement began in November 2024 when the Mayor invited local councils, fire services, housing providers and regulators to collaborate on producing a local remediation acceleration plan, LRAP. And our draft LRAP and associated funding proposal was submitted to the government in January 25. So in April 25, the government confirmed £350,000 of funding for EMCCARP to deliver the LRAP in 25-26, well, to start delivering the LRAP in 25-26. Formally approving the plan and placing EMCCARP into that coordination role for regional remediation activity. And within this funding, we have used our portion of the funds within Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service to bring additional capacity to our fire protection team to deliver the requirements of the LRAP. So moving you on to the main body of the report then, 2.2, obviously, for your assurance, we are committed as a fire service to supporting the JAIT as an example of good practice and the benefits of collaborative work to increase the safety of our residents. And in 2025, so this report, I've put across calendar year 2025 just for ease of reference. We responded to industry challenges at 2.3, such as working with regulatory bodies around cases involving assessment of external wall coverings by third-party contractors, which resulted in the issuing of a joint statement with Nottingham City Council and clarification for responsible persons around their obligations in commissioning and utilising these assessments. And then also working around cladding contractors entering administration, which is something we have seen, unfortunately, that affected known premises and caused delays to cladding remediation progress. So we have responded by contacting these premises and confirming updated timescales for remediation, and then supporting the responsible persons in the process of finding new contractors or following mitigation, extending compliance deadlines. So again, placing resident safety at the heart of everything that we do. Other work at 2.4, just to highlight, we have progressed 5 enforcement notices following non-compliance to full investigation of premises, and have worked with responsible persons regarding whether their remediation plans are sufficient, even if they fall outside of guidance. So again, trying to take a pragmatic approach to our regulation and how we can make these buildings safer. And obviously, where appropriate and necessary, we seek advice from national peers through the National Fire Chiefs Council and the Joint Inspection Team there to make sure we're following best practice and challenging ourselves in decision making for the best interests of residents. We've also responded to notification of serious concern from the Building Safety Regulator, for example, regarding structural safety concerns at premises with unprotected steels and the lack of ventilation to a high-rise premises with a single staircase. In both cases, the JAIT attended the premises within 48 hours of being notified and provided feedback to the BSR over our actions. And both premises were either issued with or were already subject to formal enforcement action. And with one of them, we considered instigating a major decant due to the severity of our concerns. So we did consider actually evacuating every single resident within that building due to the concerns. However, a site inspection information provided by the responsible person in conjunction with a peer review with the National Fire Chiefs Council, as I've already alluded to, meant that this action was not required. So we were satisfied that the suitable measures were in place, because obviously there's a significant impact on the local community and residents themselves if we were going to enforce that major decant. Just moving across the page, so as members, as you will be aware, the Fire Protection Team is continuing with multiple investigations across multiple sites within the county and certainly within the city. And these are ongoing, complex, and in some cases interrelated and require a significant resource to manage. So we continue to work with the BSR to ensure consistency and to share information between the regulatory authorities. So that is the sort of summary of that JAIT work and the significance we're applying to it. Do you want me to move on to
have we got any points you want to make on?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it's Nottingham City heavy, isn't it? And we appreciate the work that's been done. In terms of the funding, which is good news, 350,000, is that sufficient? I mean, we've got a lot of buildings, high-rise buildings that have gone up, particularly in the last few years. We've got student accommodation all over the south of the city, obviously former council and other local authority accommodation in some of the inner city areas. And you are concerned, obviously, there's the massive tragedy, and you're thinking, well, have we, has action been taken against all these buildings? And obviously, to a certain extent, it hasn't. So how is the funding? Is it sufficient?
So the funding is, obviously, that's the EMCCARP funding, that 350,000. So within EMCCARP, we've utilised that funding to employ 3 extra roles within the team. And that is sufficient for what we have identified to deliver this LRAP. So the funding is still, we're still, it's only approved for this first year, so there's still machinations to happen through government around how that funding is progressed. But for your assurance, and I think I'd like to draw your attention to the 3.2 and the financial implications there. Under the Chief Officer's delegated powers, we have substantively employed the Fire Safety Inspector within that funding role, even though we can't guarantee the funding into years 2 and 3, just as a sign of that importance of that work. But again, for your assurance, that is within, obviously a lot of work with finance, that is within our budgets to do so, and doesn't present there is a risk of doing that. But with our succession planning and retirement profile, we're confident that that will come in within budget. But the Chief has taken that decision to place that, the importance of that role right at the heart of protection and make sure that we're delivering our obligations under the LRAP.
Can I ask you another couple of questions? Actually? I mean, obviously this raised a number of issues. I mean, obviously we've got a number of people living in flats, we've got students, we've got residents, etc. And you know, people buy and sell flats all the time in the city centre. It's obviously for some people a first step on the property ladder. But I mean, how do people know if they're living in buildings that have either failed this, if they're residents or thinking of purchasing one, or you know, if their sons and daughters are going to university? I mean, how widespread is it, whether you know there was an enforcement act? Would that come as part of, I suppose, it might be as part of a survey, but if you're moving in as a student or renting, how would the public or the resident know?
So obviously new student accommodation has been built under a different regulatory regime, so you can be very certain, and again we would inspect those premises, you can be certain those premises would be appropriate and built to within standards. If you're buying somewhere, then obviously that, as you say, councillor, that would show up on searches in terms of whether it was had failed an inspection, was under any sort of remediation. There is information in the press around this. We hold information on these premises, but it is part of that due diligence around. You know, we have got a lot of premises we need to regulate, and again, there are, as I'll come on to later on in the report, there are things we don't know that we're taking active steps to try and find out, which is under this LRAP, which is one of our highest priority pieces of work.
I think just to add to that, every building owner has a responsibility to do a suitable and sufficient fire risk assessment, and they should make that available to people. So on there it would identify whether there is cladding. That's what we're issuing these notices for, to get sight of those fire risk assessments. The other bit as well, there is a public enforcement register. So if people search for the Public Fire Safety Enforcement Register, any formal action that's taken against any business is recorded on that publicly, so people can see that and check against those records as well, if people want that assurance.
You know, I think it's interesting, because obviously you've got people who'll purchase, they'll be the building owner, won't they, and then they'll be getting on leasehold. And sometimes the building owner could be some sort of, fairly distant company, couldn't it, that people don't see. That could be good. Some of them are good, some of them are less good. And I suppose there's the safety aspect to that, and then there's also the aspect to whether residents are going to get hit for a massive bill. If companies have gone under or whatever else, there's dangerous cladding. I mean, you could be into thousands of pounds, couldn't you? Which is a concern for residents. It could send people into bankruptcy, and I think it has in certain places, hasn't it? So I'm not saying we've got all the solutions here, but I'm just wondering how the public become aware, because you can put yourself in a dangerous and or financially destructive situation.
I would say definitely that fire risk assessment is key to making sure they've sight of that, and that should be shared by a responsible person. In terms of remediation, the government have put in place some national funds, significant funds, although it is a significant problem still. So the issue around leaseholders continues to be there, but there is work being done through Homes England and MHCLG in terms of making sure that remediation is actioned as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. So it's only buildings over 18 metres tall? 11.
Well, Tom's second part will come on to 11 metres.
11.
Okay. Yeah, in terms of remediation, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it was originally 18 plus, and then it was extended to 11.
Right.
So on to the EMCCARP, which is pretty high.
Yeah, so 2.5, since the announcement by the Deputy Prime Minister of the Remediation Acceleration Plans and their coordination through regional mayors, the NFRS protection team has been fully engaged with EMCCARP in preparation of the LRAP and now progressing its delivery. So obviously, apologies for the acronym heavy paragraph there. At 2.7, since approval of that funding, 25, we've recruited to the 3 roles necessary to progress the LRAP. These roles are now embedded and individuals are progressing with necessary qualifications. So to become a fire safety inspector is a quite significant undertaking, takes quite a lot of learning, quite a lot of course attendance, and quite a lot of work on behalf of that individual. So in terms of the fire safety inspector, it's 12 to 18 months from the start of the qualification to achieve the necessary qualifications, which mean they can go and inspect. So obviously that has had an implication to the LRAP, which we made, which was a fundamental part of our plan originally around how we're going to deliver this work. The LRAP is based on the JAIT collaboration. The 2 work streams are very complementary in many areas. Both aspects of this work sit within our targeted building risk team, which avoids duplication of work and helps with necessary data gathering and cleansing processes. This benefits the team's work and our knowledge of the built environment across Nottinghamshire. So there's a significant amount of data coming from government around the construction of these buildings, what they, where they are, who owns them, and we're having to cleanse a lot of that to make sure we understand the nature of the risk in the county. At 2.11, to date 16 premises have been fully remediated in Nottinghamshire, with the majority being within the city. And across Nottinghamshire we have 34 known buildings which still require remediation, 31 of which are in the city. But as a caveat to that, at 2.13, we have approximately 500 to 1,000 11 metre plus buildings across the city and county, where we're actively working with EMCCARP and Nottingham City Council to identify the presence of or lack of cladding. And this, I don't want to be alarmist, this number will reduce significantly, but I do want you to be aware as councillors and the chair of this committee that there is unknowns out there. We don't know what we don't know at this point in time, but we're a fundamental part of our work in the LRAP is finding out.
Yes.
And one of the ways we're doing that will be through initially the issuance of Section 235 notices by the City Council under the Housing Act. So these notices require building owners and responsible persons to submit requested information about a building. So we're sending these notices out. It's due to start maybe this month, but probably next month. We're undertaking that initially in the city. Before then, we're going to then extend it across the county. So we'll issue the notices will be issued. Building owners, responsible people have to submit what's your cladding made of, how high is it, what's the use of it, these sorts of information, that we can then collate that and make sure we understand the risk. And it is also worth saying that work, so we have taken on that resource in our protection team, but it is a joint resource in terms of working with our colleagues in Derbyshire. So Fire Safety Inspector is a role that will happen within Nottingham City and Nottinghamshire. Some of the work around the data, we have taken that responsibility on to work with our colleague in Derbyshire to assist them, but they have a different risk profile to Nottinghamshire. A lot less tall buildings than we do. And that's shared.
So the notices that are issued by the City Council, do they? What about the buildings in the county then? Is this?
No, so the LRAP is and the work with EMCCARP is absolutely concerned with the county.
Yes.
We're starting it in the city because that is where
Which
the
is
majority of the risk is.
Yeah.
And also, as with everything, we are doing that initially in the city as a trial. So inevitably our approach will improve as we learn from what we're doing. So we might need less information. We might need to submit less notices because we're submitting, and it is the royal we within EMCCARP. The City Council are issuing 10 a week is the plan initially. So we're going to start getting quite a lot of notices back, and we don't want to do that across the entire county, otherwise we'll overwhelm the team. But we're prioritising, as with all our work, on areas of highest risk. But we absolutely the intention and part of the plan to put that across the county.
Yeah. If this cladding is identified, is it okay? Does the cladding have to be removed, or can it be made safe somehow?
So there's always mitigations. It's never say never, never say always. So there is elements. We have buildings that have cladding that have put other mitigating measures in place. Because it might be on a part of the building. You might be able to mitigate that through the installation of sprinklers, through the instigation of different evacuation strategies, through the instigation of different alarm systems. So, in terms of that, it is a case by case.
Not right. Okay, I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Happy with that? Good. So recommendations, members scrutinise and draw assurance from this update. And obviously more updates will come as we go on. So thank you, Tom, for that.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you. Voice held up.
So that's the final item on the actual agenda. So we'll bring the meeting to a close. It's what time is it? 20 to 12. That clock's wrong.
Okay.
I'll use that to rest my case.